My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. How may channeling and soul-to-soul communication enhance our confidence and self-trust, improve our relationships, clarify our soul's purpose, and help us find our way to laughter and joy? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Stephanie Banks, found this path through conscious channeling. Stephanie Banks is a highly sought-after intuitive channel, mentor, and guide who helps people connect on the soul level. She channels from the perspective of any soul currently on the planet, souls on the other side, purely non-physical beings such as spirit guides, as well as trees, animals, and Gaia. When her mother's dementia made verbal communication impossible, Stephanie found ways to communicate with her mother's soul. This was the beginning of her channeling journey. As a conscious channel, Stephanie is both the vessel to receive the message as well as a guide to provide depth and context for the information coming through. She uses her keen sense of humor, love, and compassion to join her clients in their spiritual experience. Stephanie also mentors clients in discerning their own inner voice of wisdom. She's the author of the bestseller, Joining Joanie, Staying Connected to Your Loved One Through Dementia and Beyond. Her website is soulinsight.com, and she joins me this week to share her amazing path and discoveries. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Stephanie Banks. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, Victor. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
And thank you for joining us and sharing your path and experience. Please share with us your path and callings before channeling came into your life.
Well, it was pretty mundane. Channeling changes everything. Everything becomes more magical and beautiful and profound. But prior to my discovering this aspect that all of us have to be able to connect to divine energy and wisdom, I was a speech language pathologist working in hospitals with medically fragile infants and adolescents, doing my thing. I am a mother of 3. I was raised in a very typical household, I would say. And so really nothing out of the ordinary except for my deep connection to the natural world. So I spoke to trees and animals. I sort of figured everybody else did too, but now I know that's not the case.
Absolutely. Did you have any intuitive experiences before channeling opened up for you?
I'm sure I did, but there really isn't anything that stood out for me that I could say, oh, that very moment was my awakening in terms of this. It was really a friendship that opened the world of channeling to me. I met a best friend who was a professional channel, and that's the very first exposure I had to this world of work, and it did change my life from that point forward.
Tell us the story behind your book, Joining Joanie, Staying Connected to Your Loved One Through Dementia and Beyond.
That book sort of wrote itself through me. It's a practical story share and guide for anybody who is faced with the challenge of supporting a loved one who has dementia or really any cognitive disorder that is progressive in nature. My mother had a type of dementia that affected young people. Her symptoms probably started in her late 40s, and they were not so great at diagnosing this type of dementia back then. So they kept saying she had depression or anxiety. And so she was being medicated for that instead of, really looking at what the underlying issue was. So by the time we discovered she actually had dementia, she was fairly involved in the process of it. And our relationship was really suffering as a result. As you know, I think most people have know somebody or have been personally touched by dementia. It's very common. Alzheimer's is included with different types of dementias. And it becomes very difficult to maintain one's connection with the person who is experiencing that. There are personality changes, there's difficulty with concentration and attention, of course, memory involvement. And I was noticing that my connection with my mother was really suffering. And even though I had all this clinical background and experience in speech pathology, it wasn't working on her. It was actually more of a disservice to our relationship for me to try to apply my clinical knowledge. So I asked my best friend if she would please channel my mother's soul. And she did. And through that experience, those multiple experiences, I was able to understand more of what my mom needed from me. So I wrote a book, not necessarily based on the spiritual aspect of it, but in showing people how they can actually join their loved one in their own experience without trying to pull them out of their world and sort of force them into ours. And that's what the book is really about.
And what lessons did you learn in communicating with your mother's soul?
Well, she was very forthcoming about all the things I was doing wrong. So I am grateful for that. One of the things I learned was that in my efforts to protect, or what I thought was protect my father, I was actually getting in the way of their soul agreement, their soul relationship. So one of the things my mother's soul imparted to me was that I really needed to stay in my own lane. I had a relationship with her that was separate and apart from the relationship she had with my father, of course. And when I would try to intervene, even if it was from the most well-meaning place, it was disrupting what their dynamic was. And so I learned to step back from that and really allow for them to have whatever journey they were meant to have, and just work on how I could support my mom and how I could also make sure my own needs were getting met within the context of a relationship that was very strained. I also learned from her that it's just like I said a moment ago, it's not such a kind thing to do to bring someone out of their whatever is their reality, especially the person who has dementia or Alzheimer's. And so if my mother was insistent that she needed to wear a sweater and it was 95 degrees outside, which is pretty typical where we live, then I just go get her sweater instead of trying to, orient her to the fact that that's not a good idea, or it's too hot for a sweater. If she feels like she needs it, then just go get it. I learned how to keep the path smooth rather than try to insist that she come around to my particular viewpoint.
Mm. Why is it easier to intuitively communicate with a person who has dementia?
I think from the place of intuition, there's a lot more trust. And you can be present to just what is instead of the thinking mind. So the intuition comes from the right hemisphere of the brain, and the logic and problem solving and linear thinking comes from the left hemisphere of the brain. And I believe we have a culture and a society that is very focused on left hemispheric skills, and so therefore we have underdeveloped right hemispheric skills. So intuition, if you are willing to trust it and develop it and practice it, and that it's also along with creativity and imagination and there's music and all sorts of things come from that right hemisphere. And if we're willing to sort of lean into that and develop that side, then we can have an even more certain understanding of what's going on for another person. Intuition allows us to connect more at the heart level than anything the logic linear left brain thinking can allow us to do. So if you can intuitively communicate with somebody, you don't even really need words. You can read all sorts of other bits of information from body language, facial expression, nonverbal communication, energy in general. And I think that's something that we can rely on more than just what we think we know.
A personal share. In 1975, I was in the Air Force and I was stationed in Korea. And one morning, I had a message in my head, and it said, "Call your mother. She needs to hear from you." Now, I was always one who would trust that inner voice, no matter when it came, and differentiated between the voice that shouts, the voice of ego, or the voice of spirit guidance, whatever it might be, whatever people consider it to be. And had not had a negative letter from my mother. We would write monthly. And so I did. I followed the voice and I called my mother. And back in those days, we had wired telephones so that people could pick up a phone in one room and pick up a phone in another room. And my mother and my sister picked up the phone extensions simultaneously. And I said, "Mom, is there anything wrong?" And my sister says, "Oh my God, how did he find out?" And it turned out she was scheduled for major surgery the next day. And the voice told me to tell her that the operation would be a complete success. She'd have a complete and full recovery. Everything was going to be just fine. She needed to hear that from me. And I'm grateful for that gift.
Oh, I just broke out in chills all over my
Yeah,
body. That is a beautiful story and a perfect example. Yeah. Wow.
absolutely. Is your mom still with us?
She's not. She
Oh,
has been
okay.
on the other side for 11 years. And what she's doing from the other side is pretty much as soon as she passed, she started sending a cardinal, which was her favorite type of bird, to my son's bedroom window every day throughout the day. And when my kids were younger, because this was quite a while ago, we got such a kick out of it. Hi, Grandma. And there she is sending us signs. And then over time, the bird we now consider to be a nuisance, he still comes every day, all day. He pecks at the door, the window. He drives my dogs crazy, but it's still so delightful because that's her. I have no doubt that that is her. It's astonishing how connected to the animal world and the natural world spirit is.
So, after this experience with your mom, what were your early channeling experiences like? What led you into channeling yourself?
Yeah, well, when I saw what was possible for saving my relationship with my mother, because that is what channeling did for me, it gave me a deeper understanding of what we were actually here to do together. And this is not something I would have ever understood, even from younger years. This is not something that would have made sense to me. So it did come at the perfect time. And I felt like if this can rescue a relationship that was really so tumultuous, difficult, challenging, frustrating. In fact, I would sometimes dread having visits from her or going over there because I knew that it was just going to be hard, and I didn't always have the energy for it. So if channeling and understanding her from the soul perspective could shift that so that now I couldn't wait to get together with her and we would dance around the kitchen and we would make up silly songs and we would laugh at nothing and we just it infused joy back into our relationship together. And it also gave us some very powerful and poignant moments where even though her language and her access to language was failing because of the dementia, I still knew what she needed and what she wanted to communicate because of that intuitive connection. So I realized if this is possible in a very complicated mother-daughter relationship, then where else could it be applicable and useful in my life? So I started to take classes. I started to learn how to channel from the perspective of my higher self and from the perspective of my spirit guides. I learned how to channel the souls of my children, the souls of other ancestors, the souls of my dogs. It's endless. There's no limit when we tap into soul level information to what it can do and the healing it can bring and the depth of understanding. So it has completely changed every aspect of my life. And of course, it allows me to reach many, many others and bring this sort of healing forward for those who resonate with it.
You describe yourself as a conscious channel. What does this mean? How do you connect? And with whom do you connect?
Yes, I learned about this term when I was in an interview. I had a channeling interview, which was something that I had never had before, but I wanted to provide services to a local new age store some probably 15 years ago. And the owner said, "Okay, I have to get a feel for your work first, so come in and I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to channel answers for me." And this is very stressful, as you might imagine. So we sat in a little room and she asked me to channel all the beings she asked me to channel. And when I was done, she said to me, I'm very glad to see that you're a conscious channel. And she said, because that's really all I want to, that's what I resonate with, and that's what I want to offer through my shop. And I said, "Oh, thank you. What is that?" What does that mean? I had no idea what the difference was. But the type of channeling that I do, I'm very aware of the messages that are coming through. I see images. I do have feeling and sensation, emotion that comes with it, but I am the only one inhabiting my body when I channel. There's no energy that's overtaking me or that is moving me physically in a certain way. And so that's what's referred to as conscious channeling. I remember the messages. I remember what I've said. I might not remember every detail because they come through rather quickly, but I am fully aware. And so that's what I understood then to be conscious channeling. And then there's trance channeling, which is different than what I do. And there are some beautiful trance channelers out there as well. So we all work a little bit differently with spirit, but conscious channeling is how I work. It's kind of how I was first exposed to channeling, and so I decided then that's what I'm most comfortable with. I want to be the only one in here in this body experiencing what's going on, and so my guides work with me to ensure that things stay within the context of my comfort zone. So that's how I would describe it.
And so a client comes to you with a question. How do you connect?
I prepare for the sessions, and honestly, I feel that to be a very high vibrational, clear channel requires me to have predominantly excellent self-care, self-compassion, and self-love. So most of my preparation is really quite enjoyable. It involves getting out in the natural world, being in my garden, spending time with my animals, with my children, with my beautiful friendships and relationships. The things that nurture my heart and bring me to a higher vibrational place are what make me a clear channel. So does meditation, which is essential. So do mantras, which I do, music, movement, yoga. There's a lot of things that I do to prepare and clear the path so that spirit and souls and energetic beings can come through and bring in the clearest language so that I can understand that and make that usable and functional to my clients. So that, my preparation does require me to look at and consider myself to be a sacred vessel, which all of us are, but we don't always treat ourselves like that. And I think that's 80 to 90% of the work is how we are towards ourselves, what our relationship is like to our own soul, to our own spirit team. And those are the practices that I use.
And you had mentioned going out into the garden. Do you practice earthing?
Yes, I'm always barefoot in my garden. Sometimes that's painful. If there's mulch or unseen stones that I do not perceive before I step on them. But yes, earthing I find to be crucial to the draining out of energy that I don't need, energy that doesn't serve me. And Gaia, Mother Earth, she knows what to do with all types of energy. She is the master composter. So she can drain that energy and turn it into something or route it in a certain way where it can be nourishing somewhere. So I really trust that process. And then drawing up the energy of the planet. There's nothing more beautiful or nourishing and loving than that. So she's my girl. Mother Earth is, I channel her all the time through the trees and through worms. I channel worms, Victor.
Mm.
I mean, all the beings of life that are created and live this beautiful coexistence with us as we share this planet. They have wisdom to share. And yes, to get back to your question, earthing is very essential to my work.
Wonderful. And you had mentioned channeling souls. What else or who else do you channel?
Souls that are here on the planet, so in body moving around, souls that are on the other side, so ancestors and loved ones no longer in body, essence of earth that can be in the form of trees, plants, animals, earth herself. We can channel spirit guides. Each of us has a vast network of energetic beings who are specifically devoted to our journey here, to helping us lighten up, not take ourselves so seriously, have more fun, have clarity, expand on the gifts and the offerings that our soul is here to share with the world. Anything we can ask anything, any question at all that's sitting on the heart that we would like higher level guidance around, and I can channel wisdom towards that.
Have any of these beings surprised you?
They all surprise me. I am always learning, and sometimes I will pause in the middle of a channeled message and I will say out loud, "Oh my gosh, that's fascinating." Because there's so much. I'm always astonished by how much I don't know and how much unlearning is taking place, which is really essential, I think, if humanity is to reach that tipping point of um, moving towards harmony and thriving and life and care for all. But yes, there's always messages that even from the simplest, especially children, when I'm channeling children for their parents, and their parents' question is, well, how can I serve my child best? Or why are they not talking to me much anymore? Why is my teenager, so seeming so separate or apart from me? And then that teenager or the soul of that teenager comes in and is able to articulate, this is what I need from you right now. And it's so completely different than what we might be inclined towards as parents. That's always surprising and illuminating to me. And in the animal world, how beautifully our animal messengers are connecting to us, and how much messaging they have for us, and how it's really not that they are missing us. We're just distracted. We need to come back to being awake and aware and paying attention to our present moment and our surroundings, and then we can receive all the messages they're here to bring. So there's always just beautiful exchange of energy and wisdom that I would never have known if I hadn't tuned into it.
One of the lessons that came through to me regarding children is that we cannot project our experience onto our kids. They live a different life than we lived, and we have to remember that and respect that and work with them on their level, not on our level.
That's completely true, and still really hard to do for some reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My guest, Stephanie Banks. Stephanie, please share with our listeners where they can find out more about you and your wonderful work.
Thank you. My website is soulinsight.com, soulinsight.com. And on social media, I am at Stephanie Intuitive Channel.
And we'll be back with more of Stephanie after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi, this is Bill Maher. I can find humor in almost anything, but one thing I never laugh about is cruelty to animals. If you don't get the joke either, write People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, 501 Front Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23510.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio. Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Stephanie Banks. Stephanie, are there common themes that come through while you are channeling?
Let's see. Common themes. Well, I think this has to do with how deeply connected I am to the planet and to the fate of life on the planet. So this is something that is unique to my soul, but I'm not the only one. There's armies of us who are out here to support and love and protect and promote the well-being of life here on Earth. And so a lot of the common themes that I am present to have to do with just that, with connecting to the divine energy and wisdom and love and generosity and bringing us back to reciprocity with life on the planet. And so a lot of this has to do with sometimes food, right? How we harvest it, who we thank for it, how we interact with the plants that are providing it. This comes through in channeling. And also Gaia will show me or transmit energy and messages that really illuminate a particular moment in time or a particular person's path. I'll share an example of that. I have a client she's a steward of sacred land, she and her husband, and they were preparing their land to make some roads so that people would be able to come and stay and receive the healing benefits of this land and have retreats there and just receive nourishment. So with part of the road construction, the person who was doing that type of construction advised them that this tree would need to be removed in order for the road to have its access, and he just felt it would be the best interest of this project they were doing. So she called me and she said, we're prepared to do this. We're prepared to remove the tree, but I something told me just to check in with you and have you channel the tree and see, is this okay? Is this in alignment? Is this in right relationship with the land? So I channeled the tree, who she had named Trinity, because there's like 3 trunks that come from this one mother base of the tree. So I channel Trinity, and Trinity informs us that she is to stay. She is to stay put. She is, as she described it, a holder of the earth, which just gives me the chills even to feel the transmission of that again. And so this actually changed the plans. My client went back to her contractor and said, I'm sorry, but no, the tree is staying. You're going to have to creatively figure something else out about this part of things. The tree stayed. And within, I want to say, was probably about 6 months, a typhoon came to that area of land. There was a lot of flooding. There was a lot of damage all around. But Trinity stands. And she did exactly what she said. She held the earth. So these are the types of messages that come through. And these are the, for me, the most exciting common themes. Of course, there's lots and lots that comes through from the human perspective as well. But this is just an example of something from the natural world that can really guide us in being in right relationship and reciprocity and care for the planet.
So a new client comes to you. What is a channeling session like for that new client?
Well, usually they come to me very well prepared with a list of questions. And if they don't have that, that's okay. There's no pressure to do so, but they've usually given thought to what they need. It's what's driven them to make the appointment in the first place. And so they'll tell me, well, I don't really know how to clearly articulate this, but these are the relationships I'm struggling with, or this is the big decision coming up that I have to make, or this is where I feel disconnected from my own essence or my loved one, or whatever the challenges are. They'll tell me a little bit about what's running in the background of that. I'm not really listening so much to their words as I am listening beyond and behind their words. And that's where their guides and my guides are informing me, ask about this, get more information about that. This is what you're going to tune into. And then I can tell the client, okay, I've got what I need. I'm going to tune into your higher self. That's who's here. I'm going to tune into your spirit guides, or there's a grandmother energy that's here for you, or whatever I'm sensing. I bring the message. And then I process the message with them. I'm able to share with them the imagery that's coming through. I often see what I guess could be considered as movies in my mind's eye. I channel with my eyes closed, so I'm able to really perceive a lot more of what's going on. And we process that. I help them make sense of it, make use of it, apply the information that's coming through, and then we move on to the next thing. So each session is so very different than any other session, because that person and in their relationships and in their life is really having their own unique soul journey. And it's the greatest honor to be asked to be part of their journey in this way.
You mentor clients in discerning their own inner voice of wisdom. Who or what is that inner voice?
That's our intuition. And you can also call it your higher self. And you can also call it spirit. See, at a certain point, none of the words matter anymore in the way that they sort of segregate or separate out by detail or by nuance. So that inner voice of wisdom is what people might call like our nudges, the things that really propel us in a certain direction that is for our highest good. It's never fearful. It's never shouty and loud. That's the voice, the egoic voice that is designed to keep us safe. But the voice of intuition also keeps us safe if we honor it, if we listen to it, if we trust it. And it is really designed to show us the path to our greatest expansion.
Are clients surprised with what they learn, or does it become an aha moment for them?
Well, it depends where they are in their journey. For my clients that are pretty deep in their spiritual journey, many of them, after I channel their message, will say, oh my gosh, I knew that. And then I get to say, exactly. There's not likely to be something brand new that I'm telling you, because you are so attuned and you are so aware and you're in your journey. This is so crucial, because how many times do we need to hear things over and over and over again before it finally lands? So sometimes it's just my speaking it through their channeled message that allows them to take action on that thing, or allows them to believe and lean back into their trust, which changes the trajectory of everything. So there's that happens when people are not at all surprised and already knew. And then there are plenty of times when people say, I had no idea that's what my spouse needed from me, or I had no idea that was my, person's experience of me. That explains why this is going on, or why we keep bumping up against each other in that way. So I'd say it's probably half and half.
You had mentioned that the voice connects for the highest good, not the egoic voice, but the true voice of connection of spirit. What is the highest good? How do we define highest good?
Okay, I believe that our souls are here for one common purpose. Everybody always wants to know, what's my soul purpose? If we can simplify, it is to learn to love unconditionally, to get closer to agape, to that divine perfect love. And the way we play this out, the way we learn this is through relationships, relationships with our own self, relationships with our family members, our friends, our loved ones, those we work with, more than human beings that we are in relationship with, our relationship to the earth. So this is how the soul expresses its growth. It's how it expresses its truth. It's how it calls forward different opportunities and ways to grow. So this is also why we find ourselves, sometimes frustratingly so, in similar relationships that feel like they're going nowhere or that feel frustrating, because we are not done playing that thing out. We haven't received the intelligence sometimes yet about that, or we are stuck in our patterns of behavior and not ready to break free of those to be able to see what more this could be, or what our contribution to this repetition is really all about. So that's my understanding and my belief around why our souls continue to cycle through in this beautiful earthly existence, to learn how to be in greater service to divine love. And we are that divine love, but every single day we stray from that, myself included. There's nobody that I know who is in a perfect relationship in this way, and in the recognition and expression of this perfect love. It's part of the human experience to try to get closer to it. So that is how we are in the highest service, is when we are in the unfolding of our soul's journey to get closer and closer to divine love, which is unconditional and from the vastness of all that has ever been.
One of my life lessons and one of the blessings that I've had in my life is, in addition to a 44-year career in industrial technology, I also had a calling in the late 1990s to an organization called the New Seminary of New York, which was one of the first interfaith seminaries in the world. And one of the things that we learned there is that there's an iteration of the golden rule in virtually every religion around the world. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Love thy neighbor as thyself. If everybody put everything else aside and just embraced those two facets, what a wonderful world this would be.
Absolutely. That is the world that is absolutely possible, because the simplicity of that, how do we want to be treated and treat others in that way? That is love. That's sort of the definition of it. So I love that.
Absolutely. Can anyone learn to channel and connect to our loved ones on the other side?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I have seen it time and again. The thing is that one does need to be committed to the practice. And there's not, when I say the practice, it sounds like there's one and only, but there's not. It's just like I listed all those things I do for self-care and to keep myself as a clear channel. It's going to be a little different for everybody, but with probably very similar components. If one is willing to put in the work of showing up to meditation, the work of self actualization, like really digging into where we are stuck, what needs to be healed, what needs to be brought into the light, how we can be in more self-acceptance and self-compassion, all of these things. There's so many different ways that we can be in service to ourselves, which also means in service to the world. Then yeah, you can definitely learn to channel from the highest loving frequency. We're all channeling all the time, but we want to learn how to do so from the highest vibration, because when you channel and you bring in the energy from the noisy, dense vibration, not so helpful, not so useful. You just end up contributing to the despair of the world rather than the upliftment.
And you had mentioned becoming a clear channel. That really requires true listening without interrupting, opining, just listening to what someone else or spirit has to say.
That's exactly right. And isn't that sometimes the hardest thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What one thing do you want people to know about their own intuition?
That it is not separate from you. There are people who think that they're not intuitive. And that's not true. This is a sense that, just along with all of our other senses, we're born with. And it is fully intact from the time we're born. And at some point, we start to, we're taught to separate from it. We're taught to question it. We're taught to doubt it, to disbelieve it, and sometimes even to fear it, which is really unfortunate. So over years of being taught that, or simply recognizing that when we are highly intuitive, it might make other people uncomfortable, and so we therefore learn to accommodate to other people's comfort. There's a lot of different ways that people separate from their true voice. But what I want people to know is it doesn't go anywhere. It's not separate from you. You've just layered some things on top of it. And that's the good news, because you can unlayer those things and recover it and rediscover it and start to use it again.
And from my own personal experience, for parents who have a child who start sharing things that may seem a little strange or unusual to them, listen to what your kid has to say, because there's wisdom coming through that child's mouth.
Yes, and beauty and love and transcendence, like so much richness from the mouths of our children, of our youth.
How may we overcome communication challenges by connecting on a soul level?
So I'd start with heart-centered communication, because I think for people that are newer to this body of work, just saying, oh, just connect on a soul level might seem a little impossible or a little far-fetched. But we all have heart connection. Right now, Victor, you and I are sharing a heart connection. And the heart, I would argue, is the wisest, most intelligent organ of the body. I know that our culture would say it's the brain, but I'm a big fan of the heart. And we do have the ability to attune to and read other people's hearts. There is an attunement that goes on with it. In fact, some of my favorite work of research comes out of HeartMath Institute. So for listeners, go check out the HeartMath Institute and see how magical and amazing your heart is at perceiving energy, responding to energy, intuiting. The heart is such an intuitive organ. And so I would start with allow your heart to check in with the heart of a loved one. And you can just ask an open-ended question like, what does my loved one need from me right now in this moment? Or how can I be in greater loving service to this conversation or this situation by connecting at the heart level? And I will bet you'll get guidance, because the heart doesn't need to be retrained on anything. It knows, and it can guide and lead you, and you can feel in the resonance of your heart and of your greater body when something feels true and right for you. Everybody has a sense for what their yes is, right? It's something that feels open, expansive, warm. We want to lean into it. And then we know what our no is. It feels like we want to retreat, pull away. You might feel constriction. You might feel avoidance or dread. So when you get clear on your yes and no, you can get clear on what's true for you, what's coming from intuition, where you're feeling led.
I was inspired. I've been channeling poetry since I was a kid, and I was inspired to write a poem for children called The Brain Inside the Heart. Can I share that with you?
Wow.
We all know the
That's
brain. We all know the brain inside our head that's supposed to make us smart, but very few know or have even read about the brain inside our heart. The brain in the heart is very small, but it's much smarter than the other. It's the most sensitive brain of all when we connect with one another. The brain and the heart can feel things in its very own special way. It always knows when truth rings or when we have gone astray. If we learn to listen when it speaks, we can make our lives the best and navigate its valleys and peaks with love and joy and zest. So always listen to your heart and everything that it tells you. You'll know what to do right from the start, and its wisdom will always bless you.
Oh My goodness, Victor.
And I love
That
sharing
came
that.
through as a child, as a channeled
No,
poem?
no, no. That came through as an adult for children.
Oh my gosh. That is exquisite.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. That's exactly, first of all, yes, right? That and this is why I want people to check out Heart Math Institute. They can show you the brain and the heart. They have studied this. There is data, there is science,
Yeah.
there is fact
Mhm.
behind this. So for those of us that are really stuck in the left brain, yeah, this is actually a thing. And it is, you're right, it is smarter, I believe, so much more intuitive and knowing than the brain, than what we get convoluted with our brain, our mind, our thinking, our beliefs, etc.
Absolutely. My guest, Stephanie Banks, will be back with more after these words from the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute? When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can. But it's just as important to take time for yourself. AARP can help. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Stephanie Banks. Stephanie, what do you love most, and what is most challenging about your work as a channel?
Wow. What I love most are actually the people I get to channel for, because it keeps me in the hope that I need to have for humanity. It can be a little tricky, especially for one who does stay informed of global events, to feel the level of, I don't want to call it optimism, but love and joy and upliftment when also taking in the difficulty and seriousness of what's going on around. So that's what I love most, are the people that I serve and what they are up to in the world. I'm very, very fortunate to channel for people who are saving the Amazonian rainforest. Those are my clients. To channel for people who are serving in so many different areas, on the earth level, on the human level, in the beyond level. So that's what I love most. And what is most challenging, I would say, is I never know what is going to come through, what I'm going to say. So the tendency towards like a type A personality that I sometimes identify with, that can feel scary. I might be channeling for a big group of people or for someone who I really, really admire, but it might be a new client that I'm not very familiar with yet. And I can get nervous about that, or I can have just all the same feelings that everybody else does of wanting to be able to prepare, but I can't. There's no preparation for this. I can't like read a chapter and then recite things, and I can't really have preparation other than how I take care of myself to be able to bring those messages through clearly. So that's probably what's most challenging, is some of the human personality components.
You had mentioned your own practices with regard to Gaia. What are some of the things that you would recommend to our listeners about energetic health, well-being, and connection with this planet?
I think I would want people, especially those who are not accustomed to gardening, to just plant a seed. It really starts that simply. I didn't used to garden. I used to listen to my clients talk about how much regenerative energy they received and replenishment they received from gardening. And I thought, oh, that's nice. Maybe, maybe when I'm older. Why? I have no idea why I would want to put this off. Now I garden. I started a little mini food forest in my backyard with my son when he was like 12 or 13, and he has a tremendous green thumb, and he is so attuned to plants. It's astonishing. And I thought this would be a good thing for us to do together, a great place for us to spend time working side by side, being in awe of what grows all on its own, just with some sunshine and water. And this garden now is my respite every day. It is the place where I receive the most replenishment. He is at 17 far too busy now to help me in the garden. So it really is, I'm kind of on my own. And there's beauty in that too. I just sit out there and I watch the dragonflies and butterflies and birds and squirrels and mice and every creature and the bees and the flowers and the fruit that grows. I'm in a semi-tropical climate, so I grow papayas, coconuts grow, mangoes grow. I mean, I don't want to make people envious, but pretty much everything grows here. And that, I got off track, but it started with a seed. And that's what I want people to know. Even if you don't live in an area where you can have a little bit of a plot of land to grow things on, you can get a pot and you can get a seed and you can start an herb garden and you can just watch a flower grow and talk to it and really become part of the miracle of life here, which is, I believe, the whole purpose.
Absolutely. And you had touched upon this before for yourself, radical self-care. It's essential for everyone, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, I know that when my self-care suffers, I am not as clear a channel. I'm not as good a parent. I'm not as attentive a friend. So it's crucial.
Absolutely. How may communicating with our children on a soul level positively impact that relationship?
Well, I'm going to refer us back to the beginning of our talk when you were saying how we are not the ones in charge of our children's journeys, right? They are their own souls unfolding their own experiences, and we know nothing. We literally know nothing about what their journey is meant to be, but we have all this previous programming, which really does get in the way and interferes with their path and with what they need from us. So when you peel away all that other stuff, the conditioning and the culture and the norms that we've been taught or that we currently believe, and we simply go to soul, then we can have a true understanding of what they're here for and what they need from us in order for us to stay out of their way, but also to protect their path a bit, because that is what we're here to do as parents, I believe.
Have your relationships changed as a result of expressing your channeling gifts?
Very much so. My marriage ended, so this is not a little plug Go ahead and start channeling because your primary relationships may end. However, that's that's what needed to happen in order for there to be space for all of me, right? There was not room for all of me within the context of that relationship, so the relationship and the container had to change. On much higher notes, I would say that I have the greatest friendships ever. And it is based on truth and honesty and integrity and transparency, and that's what channeling provides. As a parent, I'm a much better parent because of the channeling. So in any given moment, even if I find myself stuck in a repetition or, old thinking with my kids, my parenting guides are always there to tell me, whoopsie, this is actually where you can do better connecting. This is actually where you can be, have the loving influence that you're looking for instead of digging in here. So since I know how to listen for that kind of guidance, it is welcomed to influence me in all of my relationships, and it does, and it has proven to be such a beautiful, treasured, what do I want to call it, gift, really, to be able to tune into that and follow that.
My guest, Conscious Channel Stephanie Banks. Stephanie, one more time, please share with our listeners where they can get all of your books and find out more about you.
Yes, just go to my website, soulinsight.com.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this wonderful, amazing wisdom that everyone really needs to listen to in today's world.
Thanks to you, Victor. I so appreciate you following your Dharma here.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.